let me touch on one of the things you brought. You brought up the goalies, right? And we'll get your thoughts on this. And we can get the stat up here, Alex. I got the AHL goalies. Um, you mentioned it, like you don't want to get into a goaltending battle against Dustin Wolf, right? Like we've talked about him enough on this show. If you haven't heard enough Dustin Wolf, go back and listen to Ryan Pike every fourth word. We know it, Wolf. But let's get the stat up here because this is interesting. Spencer Martin, and I'm curious to get your thoughts. Do they go back at this point? Because it's been 21 consecutive games now where the Abbotsford Canucks have just alternated. They've just been swapping through these guys. It's Silovs one night, it's Martin the next. And it's Silovs this night, Martin the next. They just roll and roll and roll. 21 straight games. They've just flip-flopped. Spencer Martin is number one in the AHL right now throughout the playoffs for save percentage. He's sitting at a .943 save percentage. It's impressive. It's good. Much better than Dustin Wolf, I'll tell you that. Dustin Wolf through 3 games, he's sitting at a .917, which is, hey, still good. Still good in the AHL. But Arturs Silovs, he's played in 2 games. He's sitting at a .914 save percentage. Spencer Martin gets a nice bump there. Obviously, he had the shutout in game 1 of the playoffs against Bakersfield. But I'm curious here, Quads. Do they make it 22 consecutive games of swapping back and forth? Or do you think Martin has done enough? Because that's my part of the argument. I don't think either guy's done enough to be the guy. And whatever they're doing right now with this alternating, it's working, right? It's working. Maybe it throws the opposition off a little bit because you prepare for one goalie and then you have to prepare for the next. You have to change your game plan. But I'm curious if they go back to Spencer Martin maybe on Friday after the way that he's played so far in these playoffs. Hey, like I said, number one goaltender in the AHL playoffs right now with that .943 save percentage.
I think it's Silovs. I think you go back to Silovs. And this isn't a knock on Martin. It's just that's what's worked for them. I don't think if you go back to Silovs and it doesn't work, that anybody's going to say, well, you should have stuck with Martin. Like, Silovs talked about it in particular. Like, I'm not saying they have different mindsets on it, but we've heard more from Spencer Martin in the sense of, yeah, like both of us want to play. Whereas when we talked to Silovs, and you and I had a laugh about this, Silovs was like, yeah, I think this is bringing out the best of both of us. And I really like it the way it is with alternating starts. So I don't think you're going to get a drop off in play if you go back to Silovs. I think you have to. And I'm not trying to say, like, I'm not trying to knock Spencer Martin or anything, but he didn't do anything last night that made you go, whoa, well, he's got to start the next game. Like, he's got to be your guy. If you go to game 7 and
sorry, let me cut in here. That second goal, Quads, hey, you got to have that one, right? That second goal there that he came on the right wing, left shot guy, gets it pretty far shot away, no screen or anything. That's when you got to save. And I mean, you're kind of happy that that goal doesn't end up costing you because that is a shot that you think Spencer Martin would stop most of the time. That was listen, you can call it what it is. It was a bad goal against. It was one you should have had.
And I'm not even saying it should be Silovs because he let in a bad goal against. Martin did. I'm just saying it's what's worked for you. You've done it for 21 consecutive games. Martin, like, think about it this way, Chris. The reason I don't think it's going to happen, and ultimately at this point, I think it's a fine decision to go back to Silovs. The reason I don't think it's going to happen is we saw a shutout against Bakersfield for Spencer Martin. That was the only time I would think in a playoff situation that you would say, okay, well, we have to break the alternating and we need to go back to him. They went right back to Arturs Silovs, like without skipping a beat. And I don't think it was a very tough decision, to be quite honest with you. And it worked out. Like, they swept the Bakersfield Condors. They're doing it again in this series where they're alternating goaltenders and the results are there. I don't think there's any worry about starting Arturs Silovs. If anything, like, it kind of screws up Bakersfield a little bit. Like, we talked about how they're 2 different goaltenders and you have to prepare a little bit differently. Like, scrambles around the crease. And hey, Spencer Martin was fantastic last night with his positioning, his post integration, and really sealing off the bottom of the net. He was fantastic last night. That's one thing he did really well. Like, you think about the number of scramble plays we saw, Chris, where Spencer Martin was anticipating really well, keeping his eye on the puck through traffic right in front of him. Did a fantastic job of that last night. But that's something Arturs Silovs is really, really good at. So you're not changing your game plan, but when you're the opposing team, you know that maybe Spencer Martin doesn't have the best glove hand, but that's not really a weakness for Arturs Silovs, right? Or whatever it is, right? I'm not trying to pick on Martin or anything here, but that's what it comes down to. Is I think it's worked for you so far, and I don't see a reason not to continue that.
Yeah, shooting on a different goaltender does make it a little bit more difficult. It's like a Pokemon battle. Listen, you got a fire Pokemon, You don't want to be throwing your Leaf guy out there. You want to get that water guy in there. The what you want the weakness, right? So they got different weaknesses, these two, and I'm sure that whoever's doing the scouting for the Wranglers is aware of that. That yeah, Martin's going to. I think Martin's a better goalie at stopping shots from afar. I don't think he's as athletic as Silovs. I think Silovs does let in a stinker here and there, right? Like that'll happen. A shot will beat him from the point, but he's going to be more athletic when the puck's around the crease. And hey, look at the way that the Calgary Wranglers are attacking. How many scrambles around the crease did we see last night, right? And those are the scoring chances that they're getting. And I'm not saying like they're not getting a ton of scoring chances either. Like think about last night, like there wasn't like I guess even like the shots that we saw from the Wranglers, a lot of things from the rush on the outside had like Matthew Phillips a couple times. But hey, Martin last night was big. We saw a couple different breakaways early in that game. We saw Matthew Phillips had one. I can't remember the other Wranglers play, but there was a couple of breakaways. Martin was good. He stopped them, right? So that was a big thing for them. So that's what I'm wondering. Maybe they end up going back to him because they did like some of the things that Martin did last night. But at the same, like I've been wrong this whole series or this whole playoff run. So I'm gonna guess that it's gonna be Silovs as well. I'm kind of in the same boat with you there. But we'll have to see what happens. Nobody is going to know, right? I think that maybe helps Abbotsford, and that's why I wonder if it's almost like some sort of a chess move, right? Like Calgary's probably expecting Arturs Silovs on Friday. So is it a big brain 5D chess sort of thing where hey, let's give him back Martin? They've been preparing for Silovs this whole time. I don't know. We'll have to see what happens moving forward here.